Sorry to keep you waiting, guys. Just got off the practice field. All right, thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. Good afternoon. I wanted to quickly address the events from the weekend in Ann Arbor. I did write down a couple of thoughts, so I'd like to share them with you as best I can. First and foremost, Michigan State football is about integrity, discipline, unselfishness, toughness, and accountability. The incidents involving a small group of our players do not represent our culture. Second, I made a decision to suspend players based upon video evidence that was provided to me and our athletic director yesterday. The suspensions will allow the players to receive academic support and medical services, but they will not be able to attend any organized team activities, including meetings, practices, weight training, or games. Our entire team will be cooperating with law enforcement and the Big Ten Conference to further evaluate the events in Ann Arbor. These suspensions will remain in place until the investigations are completed. When we have a full report, I will address further actions if needed. We're not here to make any excuses for the behaviors Saturday. They are unacceptable. It's also very important to say we honor the traditions of the Big Ten Conference, including the Michigan State-Michigan rivalry game, and we have a responsibility to uphold the values of this great university. We are deeply sorry. We're deeply sorry to both universities, the conference, our fans, alumni, supporters, and of course, all of our student athletes, past and present. Out of respect for the integrity of the investigation, it would be irresponsible for me to comment further. We'll have more updates as we learn more. I'm happy to answer any questions about the game or the upcoming game at Illinois. So with that, I'll open it up.
This is about your culture, because you said there was a small number, you stressed there were a small number of people involved, but yet a larger number of kids did nothing to stop it. What does that say about your culture?
Yeah, well, the culture as we define it is how we live and behave every day, and that's what our culture is, and our culture, was not represented in that way.
Did it upset you that kids didn't try to stop it?
Pardon me?
Does it upset you that kids didn't try to stop it?
So, without going into any further details, because there's an ongoing investigation, I'm not going to be, irresponsible and comment further about everything.
Mel, I'm wondering on the incident, who did you hear from, and how quickly afterward did you hear about it? Mm-hmm. And I guess when you did, from a personal level, when you reviewed the video and everything, what was going through your mind in that?
Yeah, so I was one of the last of the Spartans to come off the field, and I was, my responsibility was to try to get our players off the field safely. So all the players were ahead of me, and I was pulling up the rear, and so went into the locker room, addressed the team, went and did radio, and then before I got with you guys at the presser, I was made aware that there was an incident, but I didn't have any specifics, and so I told you all that at that time, and so I was able to gather information on Sunday morning and throughout the day from our athletic director, the Big Ten Conference, and like I said, reviewed it, and then came to these conclusions, and now there's an investigation, and we're gonna let that play out.
And from the personal level, just seeing and kind of feeling as a coach, as a mentor, what goes through your head?
Yeah, obviously, we're sorry for what happened, just like I just mentioned, and we're moving forward best we can.
Now, a head coach can't control everything his players do 24/7. How much responsibility do you take for this?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and so what I've done, in taking action, that's part of my responsibility, and so again, I talk about accountability and things like that, and so that's what I am. That's what I'm doing.
Oh, I'm curious. I know the athletic directors have spoken all that. Have you spoken to anyone? Have you spoken to Jim Harbaugh or anything like that since this happened?
I have not.
Do you intend to, or
I haven't spoken to him yet.
what was your message to the team then? Once I assume this morning before practice, what was the message overall to your team? Was it just about the game, or did you kind of bring everything into it?
We started with this, and then we moved on. We moved on to Illinois.
Coach Tucker, a different video was circulating over the weekend of it looked like a fan reaching out and touching you swinging, knocking an arm away. Can you provide more context to that? Was that somebody reaching inappropriately, somebody you may have known? Just curious what that was.
Yeah, it was alarming, but obviously, there's an investigation, and so I'm not gonna be irresponsible and comment further on that.
By an investigation, you mean the police investigation, or?
There's an investigation. There are investigations going on at this time, about things that took place.
Mel, you said that you were not going to comment further because of criminal investigation. Jim Harbaugh just said he'd be surprised if this did not result in criminal charges. Do you have a reaction to that reaction?
Yeah, well, like I said, out of respect for the integrity of the investigation, it would be irresponsible for me to comment further.
Many people sort of wondering how it all sort of started. Did you get any video that gave a clearer, indication of how everything just transpired?
Yeah, so again, that's a great question, and I understand that you have a job to do, and those are the questions that need to be asked. But it's really irresponsible for me to, with the investigation ongoing, for me to comment further about anything at this point.
Let me ask you this: as you move forward, how do you recover from this and the image that this represents? How do you move forward?
Yeah, we're laser focused on Illinois, and that was a big part of our message this morning. And it's always what's most important is what we do next. And so, we're focused on Illinois, and we're going to prepare every day the best we can.
Just off of your initial reaction to what happened, do you have an issue with the tunnel, the way it is set up, or with the fact that 2 Michigan players were up there while your team was up there?
Yeah, again, that's not something for me to speak to. And so, obviously, there's an ongoing investigation, and so, I'm not going to comment any further on that.
And then every Monday that, we've been in here talking to you, you have talked about facing adversity and how well your team has done in getting past that. How difficult is it to now be in your position where you've faced that adversity, but now you have more off-the-field distractions to just add to that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We actually talked about that this morning. And so, we're choosing, to move forward and work every day to get better in everything that we're doing. And so, and there's actually no other choice to be made in how we proceed, and so that's how we're going about our business.
Coach, appreciating what you just said, you can't comment in specific, but dovetailing off of her question, do you think this needs to be revisited, not just with Ann Arbor's tunnel, but any event at Spartan Stadium in regard to teams leaving the field? Does this change a dynamic in regard to one team should leave, the other should be held back, versus players maybe mingling and congratulating, hopefully, each other? I'm just curious where you sit, whether that should be revisited by not just Michigan State, but perhaps other schools.
Again, that's really not for me to speak to at this time. And so, we'll continue to do what we can do here and control what we can control here.
Mel, do you have any sense of what the timeline is on this investigation, and how does that affect the way you proceed, the possibility that there may be more, I guess, suspensions or anything like that?
Yeah, I do not. And we get more information, we can give you some updates. But we're moving forward based upon the information we have right now.
And then just on a personal note, I guess, have you ever dealt with anything like this in your coaching career?
It's that's a great question, because in coaching, just like in life, there's always things that that come up. And so, have I faced challenges and adversity? Absolutely. And I always believe in first, trying to do the right thing, and then taking the next right step. And so, that's what we're doing.
Mel, obviously, it eats up a lot of the oxygen in this room and a lot of rooms throughout the state. What happened afterwards in the tunnel? I'm wondering, with your team, how you prevent it from, and what the vibe is. Is it different than it is out here in terms of the amount of focus this has, and how much it's a conversation piece, and how you, and you said you addressed it always, but how you monitor that kind of going forward?
Are you speaking to the focus of the team?
Yeah, the team, and how, what the conversations are in there, and are you, is it sort of the dominant conversation piece within the team, and how easy is it to prepare for an opponent then with that?
Yeah, well, we had a very very focused practice today. The meetings were clean and crisp. Guys were into the game plan. We hit the field. We were enthusiastic. Coaches are coaching hard. We moved with good pace, and it was one of the more focused practices that we've had this season on a Monday.
Hey, Mel, in your front and your right.
There you go. All right, buddy.
Specifically with Angelo and Zion, these are two guys who were starters. I know you talk a lot of the time about next man up, but I was wondering specifically how you plan to replace those guys who are key contributors.
Yeah, well, so we'll have to see. It is a next man up mentality for us, and it will always be that way. So we'll proceed, and then we'll see how it turns out by the end of the week.
Upon reflection, is there anything you look back on on how you prepared your guys to act after a game? Anything you would change in what you've taught them?
Yeah, but I really appreciate that question. And, as we get more information, about, with this investigation, then we'll be able to, give more updates about, things like that, and anything else, related to it.
Rivalry games are obviously always very intense and it can get heated, but what do you hope that maybe both sides, both programs have sort of learned from this?
Again, I mean, we're not here to make any excuses about the behaviors. And so, we're going to be accountable, transparent. Integrity is very, very important. We're going to continue to learn, as we go, and work every single day to get better. And that's how we're going to approach it.
Now, everyone has an opinion. You're going to hear them all. How troubling was this to you this weekend? How distracted have you been by this?
Well, again, I mean, so we're deeply sorry to both universities, the Big Ten Conference, all of our fans, alumni, our student athletes, past and present, and, things unacceptable is the word that comes to mind. So, that's how I feel about it.
Kind of shifting focus a little bit. I saw Jeff Petrosky addressed in the game. I guess, how close is he to being back for you guys? And you had mentioned after the game that 2 guards got injured in the game. I assume Carrick was one, but was Brian Green hurt going into it?
Yeah, so Petro's working hard to get back. He'll be ready when he's ready. But he's very hungry, and the kid loves football and he wants to play. We did have some injuries at the guard position, and so we're going to have to continue to evaluate those guys throughout the week. Yep. So, does anyone have any more questions about the game? So if not, then we can move on to Illinois. That's okay. Do you have more questions?
Well, in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's football related, but I don't know, Steve, if you were.
Okay, Steve.
I do got one sort of a related thing, I guess. I'm just wondering, when you determining the punishment, the suspension and saying it'll last until the, just wondering your process, was it collaborative at all with other people? Just how you determined what you thought would be appropriate at this stage?
Yeah, just reviewed the video, evidence and just all the information that I had available to me, and then came up, made the decision, and so it was a lot that went into it. Yep.
I wanted to ask, football related, I assume you've had some time in here to break down what took place on the field and all that, and it seems to me like defensively the last 2 games you've slowly seen this thing start to get a little bit better while you're still having some struggles offensively. Are you sensing that on the defensive side you're starting to see some better things and slowly it's turning for you guys?
Yeah, so I definitely see that, and we worked really hard throughout this season, really starting like week 3 to have the next man up mentality, develop some players, and get better with the guys that we had available to us. And so that's been an ongoing process. And then we started to get some guys back, from injury, and those guys started to show up, Wisconsin week. And so, when you start to get like Slade back and you start to get X back, there was a significant, difference because they're, 2 of our best players. And then we had a bye, and we actually started to get even more healthy. And so we had, a little more depth, those guys got a chance to practice a little more, and so we're playing better on defense because of all the work that we put in, throughout the season, and then starting to get some guys back. It's really starting to show up on the field from a production standpoint, and we just need to continue to get better, as a unit. So certainly, I've seen some improvement on the defense side of the ball.
On the other side of the ball, the offense was able to move fairly well in the first few drives of the game after the penalty drive to start. I guess what changed in the second half after you watched it back that stopped that, and going against Illinois' defense that is pretty stingy, I guess, what makes them tick that might give you guys issues?
Yeah, so in the second half, we talked about it, in the presser after the game, what was it going to be. Typically, when you look at a play it's not efficient, offense, defense, special teams, you look at it's either something mental, it's either something physical, or it's structural. I didn't see anything that was structural from a scheme standpoint. The lack of execution is either mental or something physical. And so in the second half, we did not execute nearly well enough. We weren't able to convert on our third downs, and some of those things were mental errors, and then some of it was physical.
Hey, Mel. Brett's in his second year there. He's kind of in the spot that you guys were in last year. I know different situations, but I guess can you speak to that feeling as a team when you're on the rise and playing well and kind of exceeding expectations, and just what you've seen in them being able to turn it around this year?
Yeah, well, Brett's a heck of a coach. He's doing a really good job, and so they're playing at a high level. If you look at their defensively, they're tops in the country in almost every category. And they're able to play complementary football, and they play hard and they're physical. They have some really good players, and they have a really good scheme, and so that's who they are, and I expect them to probably be even better than what they've shown on tape so far, because they continue to get better, but they're doing a great job.
Mel, Jim Tressel in his second year wins a national championship. Your second year, you win 11 games. You see Brett now in his second year. What is it about the second time, even if there's a fall off after that, that suddenly everything seems to come together for a lot of programs?
I think it's different with each program, but I can only speak to how things have been like for us. Like you go talking about from year one, year two, the players have a better understanding of what you want, the culture, and the foundation has been laid, and then it begins to be cemented, in year two, and then as everyone becomes more confident in the process, understands more of why do we do things that we do, then guys start to play faster, they start to play more physical, and they start to play with more confidence, and then the execution is important. And if you can execute on a consistent basis, with all those factors, all that experience, then you have a chance to win. And I know in any year, but like especially when you have a good year, you got to win close games. You got to win close games. You got to be able to win games in the fourth quarter. And so the places that I've been, that's what has happened in year two.
Mel, their running back, Brown, I'm just wondering what you see from him on tape, how important he is to what they do offensively, and if he reminds you of anybody you've played, this year or recently.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to watch more film on him. I just know he's a really good player. I know he's a really good player, but I need to watch more film on him to give you more specifics. Someone asked earlier about like preparation for the game and things like that. I haven't watched any Illinois film. I have not watched any Illinois film. My staff has, but I haven't watched one play yet. So I have catching up to do. And so by the time we practice tomorrow morning, I'll have all the film watched, things like that. But I'm leaning on my staff, and the players right now, to be laser focused, and that's what I saw today.
Is that because of the circumstances? Like in a normal week, everything smooth, you would see a little bit at least by now.
Yeah. Yep, it's all about priorities. Yeah.
Mel, how well do you know Brett Bielema? And then secondly, I wanted to ask you about you mentioned at the end of the game you had some issues with the guards in terms of health, and are you going to be anticipating being shorthanded on the offensive line this week as well?
Yeah, we'll have to see. Rod Scott does a great job, our head trainer, and his staff, and so guys are constantly getting treatment, and we'll continue to evaluate guys, and we'll have to see. But the guys will be ready when they're ready. And what was the first part of the question?
Just how well you know Brett Bielema, like your relationship going back. Have you crossed paths a number of places and things like that?
Yeah, I do know Brett. I don't know him like extremely well, but I do know him, and I know he's a heck of a football coach. I mean, he's a really good coach. He's a hard-nosed coach. Always about being physical, being sound, being great on special teams. I have a lot of respect for him and as a coach and what he's done in his career. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.